right, let's get started. So this is Dan from Z-Band Technologies, and the first product that I wanted to show you today is our Encode LS. Encode LS is standing for live streaming. So this is our live streaming encoder. And what you can see here is this is a device that exists on our network at Z-Band. It's detecting an HDMI video source, it's broadcasting HDMI. What I'm going to cover in the first part of the presentation is how to broadcast this to Facebook. We have to appease our metaverse overlords here at Z-Band Technology. So the first thing I'm going to do is broadcast out to Facebook, show you how to do that. It's a very simple process, pretty straightforward. So we're going to create the stream. To do that, you're going to go into streaming setup, and we are going to select Facebook Live as our stream service. You'll see the URL auto-populate here, and then we're looking for a stream key in order to actually broadcast out to Facebook. Stream key is pretty easy to get. You just go into your page, into your videos section, where you can either upload a new video or visit the Creator Studio. We're going to jump over to the Creator Studio. It's going to take a second to go through some pop-ups and some other stuff here, and really what we're going to look for is the ability to go live with our creation. So we're going to hit Create New, Go Live. This is going to take us over to our live producer page, and we are going to create a new live stream. Creating this new live stream is going to allow us to either use the existing webcam that is in our PC or a streaming software platform, which is what we're going to select. And here we see the stream key that our encoder is looking for. So really, outside of moving all of the pop-ups out of the way, this is not a difficult process. We're going to copy this in, going to paste it here, add this stream, Facebook Live, and we are going to save and confirm so that this now exists in our encoder. I'm going to go back out to the overview page of the encoder because there's one more step to this, which is now you can see we've got our Facebook Live. This is the default RTMP stream for Facebook. We didn't make any changes, and we're going to play this out to Facebook. Let's go to the Producer Studio. So we will go to the Producer Studio. You'll see this pop up here in just a second. And it's going to connect to live video. I'm not going to let this play very long because some of the stuff that we have is, what would you call it, copyright protected content, movie clips, and some of that kind of stuff. So while we're waiting for that to connect, and this process can take anywhere from a few seconds to 15, 20 seconds, depending on network settings, that kind of stuff. While we're waiting for that, I do want to show you the advanced settings, which is where that RTMP stream actually lives. So you see in the encoder, you have this RTMPS, Facebook API. That's in your Producer Studio right there. And now you can say, here we go, we are broadcasting our Z-Band Technologies content. So right now, this is just in a preview mode. We're not completely live. We could obviously now have to do, once we are past this point, we can just push this out, choose to go live in our Facebook Live settings. But this is what our video content looks like as it's being broadcast from our office, our Z-Band office, through to Facebook. So easy stuff, pretty straightforward. The hardest part is actually just finding the stream key and being able to copy it into the system and the platform. Same thing exists in YouTube or really any other live streaming platform that you would want to utilize, where we're looking for that stream key, we're looking for the URL, same information, and then we broadcast and we go. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this on the broadcast side of things. And I'm going to exit out of our Facebook Producer Studio as well. You can see here we've paused out. But that's like I said, pretty simple, pretty straightforward process that is not difficult for anyone to utilize if they wanted to be doing broadcasting. So I'm going to do a little more of the broadcast here of the Encode LS to show you just a few more features. This is a full HD encoder, so it'll take you up to, like you see, 1080i 60 here, 1080p 30 on the broadcast output format. It's going to understand any 1080 feeds that you give to it. From the streaming setup, what we just did was pushed out this Facebook feed. You also have native integrations with YouTube and Twitch, or you can do a customized RTMP stream, in which case all you will want to put in is the RTMP URL and the stream key. So that's if you want to broadcast to your own website, or if you use Wowza or Akamai or another CDN type technology for your broadcasting. So Facebook is a native integration. It works, no problem. Same with YouTube. While you're doing that, and this is if you're talking about sporting events, if you're doing, let's say, football game, basketball game, chorus concert, band concert, if you're doing school board meetings, any of that kind of stuff that you want to broadcast, you can broadcast it using this RTMP platform, which is our live streaming, push it out to the internet, or local broadcasting over UDP multicast. And you can do both of these things simultaneously. So while we're broadcasting the board meeting to Facebook or to YouTube, we can also be broadcasting that board meeting, that speaker, that guest, whatever it is that you want to push out locally throughout your facility as well. So that can be within the school, depending on your network configuration. It could be across multiple schools. It could be within a healthcare facility. You really have your options as to where you want to broadcast this locally using that dual streaming capability of being able to both push live to the internet and then be able to do our local unicasting and multicasting. This is something that you have complete control over. You can change these network addresses around to whatever your network team needs them to be. Again, simple process, simple UI, and all we're really looking for when we help you configure this stuff is a little bit of guidance on where you want to send your content. What do you want that local streaming address to be? What do you want that streaming address to be? Or what edge devices do you want to hit out on the internet with regards to Facebook and YouTube? So that's really, in a nutshell, the encode LS. You can broadcast, right? I mean, that's the point of the encoder. HDMI in, high definition, out to the internet, Facebook, YouTube, or locally on your network so that you can hit desktop players, televisions, and monitors, that type of stuff within your facility. Which is the first part of any IPTV system, is actually creating that content. So what we're going to do from here is jump into the remainder of that IPTV system and kind of walk through some of the things that Z-Band offers you and where you have these applications. Kill that. Boom. All right, so the brains of our IPTV system runs on a Windows-based server. That can be a device that we provide you as an appliance, or that can be a device that you get the images for and deploy in your data center as a virtual device. So we don't care either way. We have options for both. That's, again, just a conversation with your network team or your server team on how you want to deploy everything. Most of our customers seem to trend towards virtual environments these days. It's a little easier to manage. You're a little more efficient with your device count, but we do have the physical appliance options as well. So that's what I'm accessing right now. This IP address up here in the upper left-hand corner is the server at our office, which is being utilized for this demonstration. So I'm sitting at my house through VPN, accessing the system in the office. And the first thing I want to show you is kind of how we set everything up. So I'm going to launch our portal. The portal is going to give you control. I'm going to zoom this in a little bit so you guys can see it better. Of everything that you would possibly want to do. You're going to get your channel creation. So I'm going to go in and edit this one just for ease of demonstration. Again, coming back to that network team conversation with the folks who are helping implement this system, you get to decide everything. You get to decide the channel number, what we're going to name the channel, what IP address it's going to be broadcast on, any information that you would possibly want to push out with regards to the configuration of the system. You just send that over to us, and we make sure when we're doing the on-site engineering, when we're doing the installation, that we set it up to your specifications. So if you want channel 1 to be Fox News or CNN or ESPN, that's absolutely how we can set it up, regardless of how it's coming in from your service provider, regardless of how the boxes are positioned in the rack. All we're really looking for from you is the information on how you want to set this stuff up. So you can create basically your own head-end channel lineup. Once you've created that channel lineup, you assign these devices to content groups, or these channels to content groups. So you can see here, if I highlight this particular content group, my demo channel is available. If I don't want to make that available to everybody right now, I just deselect that, hit publish, and then boom, we've made the change. And now it's in or out of that content group, depending on whether it was selected or deselected. So what this allows you to do in like a K through 12 environment, or in any sort of campus environment, we've got multiple facilities, is each facility can get its own channel lineup. So I can broadcast a couple of channels from a central location. I mean, let's say you've got a chapel channel or a town hall channel or a digital signage channel that you want to push out to everywhere. You can push those out from your data center, from your WAN, send those out, you make them a part of a content group that everybody gets access to. Then locally, you can decide, okay, this elementary school gets these channels, this middle school gets these channels, the high school gets more channels because we've got a lot going on there, more events, more activities, that kind of stuff. And decide just with the click of a button which facilities, which content groups, which is how we manage it, get content and which don't. So the way that you do that, you go in, we edit our content group here. You can see right now I just have this set to authorize all users, but you can also do this Active Directory integration. So calling back to what I just said a couple of minutes ago, this is a Windows-based device. It's running a Windows-based OS, so it's got that Active Directory integration. Might even be running in your server environment on your domain. So all we get are just a set of credentials on your domain that give us the authority to go through and query that domain. And once we go through and query that domain, we can then either pull out groups, users, whatever it happens to be, to assign them the authorization, which you see over here on the right-hand side, to access content groups. So then all end users are doing is logging in with their Active Directory credentials, or if you have that set up in advance, as a part of our setup and commissioning, we'll log in the boxes via their Active Directory credentials so that we know they're going to the appropriate places. So this is really where, on the setup side of things, end users spend most of their time creating channels, creating content groups, understanding who gets what content, and then these two tabs are really where we spend most of our time here. There's a lot of configuration side of things and stuff that we'll share with the network team that we can dive into in some of these other areas. I don't want to burn through a bunch of time on that today, so I'm just going to move on to some of the more exciting stuff again that we can do. But so review so far: use the Encode LS, create the channels, create the multicast streams, and then use the portal to decide who can get those multicast streams and who has access to them. So once we've done that, we have access to the multicast streams. We have decided who gets access to those multicast streams. We're just going to then push out and say, okay, here are the decoders that we have, and I kind of want to monitor what they're doing, and we want to be able to push them content. And we do that through our Signage Director platform. And our Signage Director platform, like I said, this is a system that we have at the office right now, so there's a limited amount of decoders that we have online. I mean, right now there's only one, and it's reporting is offline. So I'm going to kind of roll through the demo and explain the concepts. But you log in, you see the dashboard. It's going to tell me how many endpoints I have online, how many endpoints I have offline. And once it does that, I can either drop down here to my endpoint errors side of things, which is going to tell me what's going on with the box, or I can go into Endpoint Manager, which is going to give me a snapshot of all devices. Adding a device is very, very easy. I'm going to do this for the purposes of the demo. We assign it a number. System will not allow you to assign duplicate numbers. And we're going to call this. Now, from here, I can put in a location if that's going to help me find the box. I can put in a description if that's going to help me find the box. And I either need to enter the IP address or the serial number. You do not need to enter both. So the way that the devices work is the serial number is kind of the primary piece of information that we're going to utilize for all management and reporting moving forward. So if you know the IP address, you can put in the IP, communications will start, and then the system will automatically fetch the serial number. And then let's assume, for whatever reason, system goes down, lose power, summer break, whatever, but you're down longer than your DHCP lease. When the box comes back online, it may grab a different IP address. Our system is going to recognize that serial number. So regardless of whether or not the IP changes, the box is going to be tied to the serial number that reports. Whether you put in the IP address, whether you put in the serial number, once our system has that serial number, it's going to find the serial number to be the most important thing. So I'm just going to put up one that is on our work. And then you get to decide how you want to communicate with the device. You can communicate with the device either through multicast or unicast. The only reason that this matters is where you're actually physically locating the server versus where you're locating the devices. If we're talking about locating the server in a data center, most of the time then we're only going to have unicast communications out of that data center to the rest of our facilities, to the rest of our IPTV architecture. So we're probably going to choose unicast. Again, this is fine. We like to know this during the setup side of things. We like to understand that configuration so that we can pre-configure as much of this as possible and make setup easy for you. Once these devices are online and a part of our system, they're going to show us the last content that they were watching. These are both offline, so they're not showing me anything, obviously. Their IP address, their serial number, their mode. You can go into this info tab and take a look at the firmware version that it's reporting, what the last update from the unit was. The last update from the unit actually becomes quite useful. We've had some customers where everything reports is offline, and then I can go in onto that info tab, and the last update from the unit was like 12:17 a.m. on a Friday, and they pushed a network update, and I can deduce then, okay, you did something in the network update that broke the system. So this last update from unit becomes very useful in a troubleshooting standpoint. You can also go in and reboot these guys. If you have RS-232 and our serial control module, you can turn televisions on, you can turn televisions off. You can force it to go back and reload its channel lineup, or you can disable or enable the IR remotely. And I'll show you how to do that and why we would do that in just a second. The other option that you have for controlling these things is our virtual remote control. So I just went and clicked on this remote icon that you've got here, and it's launching our virtual remote control. So what this allows me to do when a decoder is online is go in, potentially change the channel, do any sort of video on demand playback, all that other kind of fun stuff. If I've got a box that's in signage mode, this one's in signage mode, I can actually change the digital signage that's being displayed on the screen remotely through this virtual remote. So you have the ability to change the channel, you have the ability to launch a device and change its digital signage, all that through the little remote icon there as part of our set-top box module. So as you can see, there's a couple of different ways to actually control edge devices, control set-top boxes and decoders once they're deployed in the field. The other thing that you can do is actually run events based off of these. So this event here is kind of an ad hoc event that we did for a customer demo we were doing earlier this week. This is going to launch a digital sign just with the push of this button. Now, the cool part about this, let me go back to Group Manager so I can show you, is I can choose, right, whether I want to send this to every decoder within my system, whether I want to send this to a single decoder, whether I want to send it to a group of decoders. So again, I'm going to call back to this application that we were just talking about with regards to like having potentially multiple schools or multiple facilities all talking back to one server in a data center. If that's your infrastructure, like if that's the architecture that you've deployed, then I can go in here and I can create a middle school group, high school group, elementary school group, or a group for a specific elementary school, a group for a specific wing of a high school if your facilities are large enough. And I can send only the content that you want to send using this this event management system within the sign director. So all you have to do is create those groups. As you add endpoints, they become available over here to select or deselect. You add a group. When you add that group, you choose which endpoints you want to make a part of it. And then once you've created all of your groups, created all of your endpoints in the system, you can go into these events and decide, I'm going to just select this here so you can see it, where you want to send content. I can either pick the groups that I've already created. I can do all endpoints. It does not matter. So there's a tremendous amount of flexibility within the system to decide where you want to send content and how you want to send that content. And there's a ton of different activities that you can actually run as we're doing this. You can disable and enable the IR remotely. You can load a channel. You can load a digital sign. You can reboot everything. You can put them all into a welcome screen where they're showing like a 1920 by 1080 image overlay to welcome guests to the facility. You can set the volume remotely. You have a ton of kind of control as to what you can do to the device here. And just as a real quick example as to why you would ever want to do an IR, enable or disable. I mean, let's assume that you're a school and you have an address that is a speaker's coming in, a state senator, House of Representatives, someone who's got some importance and kind of heft in the community, and you want everyone to be able to see what it is that they had to say. Well, you can just simply run an activity that loads the channel that they're going to be on to all endpoints, and then also disable that IR remote on our set-top box. We're not disabling the IR remote on the TV, just on our set-top box, so that they can not change the channel. Now you forced basically everyone who's watching TV. Again, I can't force them to turn monitor or smart board or Promethean board or whatever on. But assuming that they've done that, you're then forcing them to watch the content that you want them to watch. And you can add as many activities as you would like here with the relative time in minutes and seconds. So I could load the channel, 10 seconds later, disable all IR, and then an hour later, after the speech is over, I give them their IR controls back. And I can do all that with one activity at the push of a button, or I can schedule that out. Let me actually show you the schedule so that you know what's going on weeks, days, months in advance. And then you can just look at this schedule on a day-to-day basis and decide, hey, does this make sense? Do I need to take this out? Do we need to change an event? But you do have the ability to run scheduled events as well. So I'm going to go back to Event Manager and just show you one of those real quick. And when you're creating these scheduled events, the big thing that you're creating here is you get to choose the recurrence, right? So we're going to do it. This is the start date and time. Are we going to do this every day? Are we going to do this on a weekly basis? Or is it never going to recur? Maybe we just want to schedule something and it's only ever going to happen that one time, but we wanted to schedule it. So that's definitely a possibility as well. You have a ton of flexibility as to how you want to do that. And the other thing to bring up here, because it came up several times at the last trade show where we demonstrated this system, is this event ID. So this event ID allows you to trigger our system remotely. So if I've created these events, fire drill event, channel change event, weather alert, whatever the message it happens to be that you want to send out. Maybe it's just a welcome message. I've got this event ID trigger, and it's just a simple line of code. It's an HTTP call where you input this event ID string, and then I can trigger this from an Elgato Stream Deck. I can trigger this from a simple web page if someone wants to build a web page that makes the HTTP call. Really, any device that's capable of making a simple HTTP call can then trigger this event ID remotely, and we'll give you the ports and the communications that are necessary to do that. But it makes this very easy to do in terms of something that not only a TV system, but also is going to allow you to kind of add some flexibility to that. Okay, maybe we're a little more than just TV. We want to make sure that in the event that there's a weather emergency, we can push out an image. It just says, boom, weather event, early dismissal today. Any of that kind of stuff can be done. Very, very easy. I'll show you a simple one. I'll just create a real simple one real fast. So I'm going to go into my event manager. I'm going to add a new event. This is going to be MOE test. Never going to recur. I'm going to make it manual rather than scheduled. So let's go look at our manual events. Now you can see a MOE test. You can see it's angry at me, right? Because I haven't actually created any activities. I don't know. I have made this event, but the system doesn't know what I want the event to do. So I'm going to add an activity. I'm going to activate the MOE. Now, an MOE is a moment of exclusivity. So this is an image that exists on the decoder all the time. It's always there. It's just transparent, right? You can't, it's not actually being pushed to be visible. but it's not groupable. If I set up a moment of exclusivity, it's going to go everywhere throughout every set-top box that I have. Like every set-top box that I have is going to receive this message. So think of like a stadium, someone scores a goal or big play happens. So we just, for an instant, we want to flash every television, boom, touchdown, goal, whatever that happens to be. Same kind of concept is what you're doing. Is you're just overtaking these screens for a few seconds. And then you can select that image. It's either going to be an image that already exists, or you can add a new file directly from your computer. Pictures. Forget if I have my fire drill image in here. No, I don't. But that's okay. So we'll just add this image, no big deal. And then so it'll upload that image. And now this is the image that will get published to the server and pushed to all the set-top boxes. The other thing that you see here is the duration. How long do I want this event to run for? Let's just call this 300 seconds. That's going to be 5 minutes. And so what you've got now is I've created this event. It's going to push out my multicast messaging to every TV throughout the facility, and then it's going to stay there for 300 seconds. And then at the end of that 300 seconds, we're done. It's going back to whatever was previously on the TV. So you can change this duration as much as you want. Like it's just looking for a number of seconds that we're supposed to run and hold this event. I'm going to save that. No. Didn't assign it everywhere, so that'll cause problems. And now we're ready to go. It's throwing me a small error here because it's waiting for the FTP stuff to upload, but this is all that really requires to send this out. It'll take a few minutes to push everything out to the server, and we will be able to run this event. And again, this is something that we can trigger locally. This is something that can be triggered using that event ID through any sort of third-party device that makes an HTTP call. And this is something that you can obviously then go in and just grow into Event Manager and hit the play button. I mean, you have plenty of options as to how you actually want to trigger this content. So very straightforward in terms of creation. We definitely do some training and assistance on how exactly you want to utilize this. And then the other thing that you can do, I'm going to go back and show it real quick just so you can see it, is you can assign these to a quick launcher tab. So I didn't assign this one. Let's throw this one into emergency launcher 1, tab 1. So now I'll also, rather than needing to go here and run this event, I can just go down to my emergency management, boom, and then I can launch it directly from here using this as a web page. So it's a nice, simple UI to allow you to launch rather than needing to go and sort through Event Manager. So the way that our customers tend to use this is after you're a couple years into it, you've got quite a few events, right? You've got channel change events, you've got channel change events for certain groups, you've got different digital signage events. This is all, it gets cluttered is probably being a little too strong with it, but you can have multiple pages of information that end up here if you're really utilizing the system over a period of time. So you utilize either your quick launcher or your emergency management side of things to launch events that you're going to be doing on a regular basis and kind of bypass that event management side of things. So again, it's a pretty straightforward system. There's a lot of power here. It can be triggered remotely, and we can talk to either every endpoint throughout the facility, or you can just talk to individual devices, or you can talk to groups of devices. So there's a lot of control. Again, 99% of the time, 95% of the time, where customers are just watching TV, end users are just watching digital signage or whatever we've created. But there is this kind of small case where we're using this to do additional things rather than what we normally do in just an IPTV system and do some messaging side of it. So I did want to make sure we showed that today on the webinar. So at this point, we've kind of gone through and we've talked about how we talk to set-top boxes and how we talk to decoders. We have gone through the virtual remote side of things. Did want to touch on this really quickly, though, with the virtual remote side of things. I launched this from Sign Director, so we didn't get to see kind of the configuration side of it. On the configuration side, you can actually use this software to give individuals or groups of people control of endpoints that are only specific to them. So let's go back to this multiple site concept. Assuming that you have multiple sites throughout a facility and you want to give a tech or a technical administrator in each school the ability to control only their endpoints through a web page. This virtual remote setup, that's how we do that. And you can either create it through Active Directory, or you can just assign some pins and pin numbers to everything. And then give them like 4-digit PIN passwords. And they use that 4-digit PIN password, they log in, and then they only get to see their decoders. Only the decoders that exist within their school or within their facility are utilized for, or what they're able to utilize and control. They can't see anything else. They can't change channels everywhere. They can only change channels on their decoders. So I'm showing it here in kind of the administrative side of things, the master mode. But you can definitely segment those controls out and give individual users or groups of users, or if you're in a conference room, pin into that conference room so that everyone who uses the conference room has control of that conference room TV. That's also a feature of the system as well. So decoder control is pretty robust throughout the platform. That was the other one we launched. We covered how to create the channels. So yeah. So one more thing to show you before we kind of jump into desktop viewing is the actual signage creation side of things, right? So you've seen the automation control module, you've seen the IPTV portal where we create the content. If I want to send signage, how do I actually send signage? So we'll take a look at that real quick. So sending signage, you have a couple of different options. I'm going to have to select a number over here. I'm going to hit new sign just to show you guys a couple of different things. If you select a new sign, you are going to be presented with a series of different templates. And these templates are basically going to be things that are kind of the most common that we've seen from customers, but they're not limitations, right? You don't have to live within only the templates that exist in the system. I'm going to do a real simple one here just for the sake of it. Video with overlay. So this video, you can either pull already existing video assets from within the system. I need to zoom out a little bit. Sign Creator works best at about 75% zoom. As you can see, this is a new system. There are no existing video assets. So what I'll do, let's go down here to upload a file, videos, and then you could pull any of these videos and say, okay, this will upload to the system. Now I'm at home. Uploading through VPN would take a little while. I don't want to spend 2 minutes of the demo, not doing anything. So I'm going to make a small change to our system just for the sake of showing you how to build a sign. And I'm going to delete that as a video asset. And instead, I am going to load an existing IPTV channel. Now you can see, got this IPTV channel, no source, it's still angry at me. And it's by default started at X0, Y0, which is my top left corner, and then given itself this size. All of our digital signage assumes a 1080 HD screen. So I'm going to give it a 1920 by 1080 screen, and I'm going to give it this channel that already exists on the portal. So you see it knows then the multicast side of things. If we want to see any updates from the portal or any changes are made to the portal, I want it to catch that automatically. So I'm going to select my instant update button. And we want to allow the audio to go out for now, but we could mute the audio if we so chose. Now you'll notice my image has disappeared. And this is because my IPTV channel is at the bottom of this list. So the platform thinks that it is the asset that I want to see the most of. In order to fix that, I'm just going to drag this guy back to the top. Now my image appears again, and we're all good. Image, as you can see, is angry with me. It's because I haven't actually added a source here, right? So we'll select, we will throw in this little picture of Banff. And I can adjust this down. Now we've got a lovely little picture of someone kayaking across Lake Moraine in the upper right-hand corner of everything. If you don't like that, we can obviously go in, we can replace, and again, we can upload files from our PC. They don't have to already exist on a server. So basically what happens is you select something from here, it gets published to a content folder on the server. and the content folder exists on that server. Everything that's in the content server is available to be pushed out. So it's pretty straightforward. You can either use what's already existing, or you can just hit this plus button and away you go. I don't want to make that change, so leave it. And we can see I still have some angriness here. We'll go back to our things because I have not assigned this a sign number. This is more just for the code side of things. What the set-top box expects to see is a 3-digit number. It doesn't care what you name the sign. The sign name can be whatever you want. That's not how the decoder actually talks to the system. It talks to the system using that 3-digit sign number. So we are always going to have to assign every sign a number. Now you can see this is ready to be saved. I can save this. And from here, there's two things I can do with it. I can publish it, which in the last demo that I was talking to customers about is a little bit of a misnomer. What you're doing here is you're publishing it to the server so that it can then be deployed out to set-top boxes. From here, from the sign creator, we're not actually publishing anything out to endpoints, with one exception, which is this preview button. And you can see, nope, that's the wrong one. You can see right here that I can assign an endpoint as the preview endpoint. So if I assigned an endpoint as the preview endpoint, back here within sign creator, oh, I have to open the right tab of sign creator. Back here within sign creator, this would then be populated. I could click on it, and then I'm sending content not to the server. It's not getting published and getting ready for deployment. I'm pushing this sign just directly to an endpoint that I have access to so that I can see what this sign actually looks like, rather than publishing it out to the server and deploying it and then someone calling back and be like, you overcompressed that image and it looks terrible. It gives you a chance to kind of preview things and get a feel for what it is that you're actually going to be deploying. So I highly recommend that we utilize the preview feature. It's worth your time to have an extra endpoint to do that. From there, it's pretty straightforward system, right? We're publishing it out, it's successfully published, and then it's available on the server to be deployed the same way that we were just talking about through our sign director platform. I can decide, do I want to send it here? Do I want to send it here? Do I want to send it to all endpoints? Do I want to send it to a group of endpoints? It's going to take a little bit of time from the time we publish to the server for the server to then load it into the memory of the decoders, because the way that architecture works is it actually lives in the 16 gig of local storage in memory of the decoders. So please allow some time for that process, right? Like, don't think, oh, it's 5 minutes before I have to do this and I have to push everything now. Especially with video files, any of the larger stuff, the more robust that you get, the more time you have to allow for that upload process. But again, it's not terribly difficult. You just need to make sure you allow a little bit of time. I want to go back and do just a quick overview of the assets that are allowed. Obviously, we can do a clock. You're going to choose what time zone you want, day, hour. We can do images. We can do a playlist of images. If you do a playlist of images, I'm going to edit this real quick just so you can see it. Every time we add an item, I get to decide how long that plays for. And do I want to loop these images? I'm going to select loop. So let's just say 30 seconds. Yep. So now I've got my demo playlist, and I want that to loop. So it's just going to keep every 30 seconds kind of looping those out. As soon as I save this and publish it to the server, because I did this in an already existing sign, it's going to push this new content out to any decoder that happens to be playing this. So it's important to note that if you are making changes on the back end to an existing sign, as soon as you publish that, that is going live across your system. You don't want to publish until you're sure you're happy with the content that you you've got out there. Let's go just show you again. So image playlists, dynamic data if we wanted to do cafeteria menus, that kind of stuff. RSS feed, so if I want to go out and get a weather ticker, CNN ticker, Fox News ticker, ESPN ticker, all that kind of stuff. Your Stadium, there are integrations for doing scoreboards with, I think it's Stats LLC. And then you can put in your own text, scrolling text, multi-line text. And then obviously the same thing, we had capability with images, we have capability with videos where you can do a playlist of videos. The only limitation that you have here, there are only 2 decoding chipsets on the system. So you have to pick 2. You can do a background video with a live TV overlay. You can do 2 live TV channels side by side. You can do 2 videos that you've created. There's just a limitation of 2 decoding chipsets in the platform. But so that's kind of a quick tour of Sign Creator. And again, this allows you to create this content on the back end, publish it to make it ready for deployment, and then actually go in and use Sign Director to deploy it. So with what we've covered today, we've covered how we create content. We've covered how to push content out to the system. We've covered how to monitor that content once it's out there, how to give people remote access to channels. The last bit that we want to cover is just our desktop player. So we have the capability of not only playing on decoders, but this is a desktop player. I'm running in Chrome right now, as you can probably tell by this point in the webinar. And I'll have a list of available channels that have been created in the portal that I can select, or I can also password protect this with Active Directory or Okta, where you have to log in with credentials in order to access your channel. So there is an HTML5 based desktop player, and it can give you the ability to do 1, 2, or 4 channel grids. So if you want to monitor multiple videos at the same time, you can do that. That out. And there's an electronic program guide module. That one is not on this demo, I don't believe, but it goes out and communicates with Tribune on a regular basis, like weekly basis, and downloads an EPG so that you have access to that information as well. So there's complete desktop playback that you have the ability to do. If I'm going to go down and just kind of show you. One, I was watching something, I want to make it full screen. You simply double click and that'll make whatever the content is full screen. Right now, it's going to yell at me because there is no active multicast content in my house. So eventually here, it's going to tell me that it can't load the channel that I'm trying to get it to load, which is also what's preventing me from being able to go into full screen mode. But the desktop viewer is absolutely fantastic. We deployed this at a lot of different places. It's probably the most commonly used feature of the system. But yeah, that's I think the last thing that we wanted to touch base on today. Again, just to kind of go back through linearly from the beginning. There's a lot of different ways to create that content, whether we're creating that content to go local or whether we're creating content to go to Facebook, YouTube. Once we've created that content, you have a lot of control and flexibility as to who can watch it, whether they're going to log in with Active Directory credentials. We can build those Active Directory credentials if you want to just kind of stand up a dummy domain with simple passwords and that kind of stuff. That's an option as well. Then you have a lot of control and you have a lot of feedback from those decoders. Every minute on the minute, they're reporting back to the system, telling you I'm watching this digital signage or I'm watching this IPTV channel. So there's a lot of power in the system, and we think it's a good fit for a lot of different markets. We think it's got applications in K through 12, definitely in the corporate space. And we're excited to hear from you with, hopefully what will end up being some good questions and some really interesting applications. So I want to thank you very much for your time. I'm going to stop sharing and call an end to this. This was, again, Dan Helfrich from Z-Band, and please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Thank you.